I was born into a kingdom built on blood. My father calls it legacy. I call it a prison with chandeliers. 3 days, 3 suitors. 3 idiots, he said, because none of them mattered. Because to him, they were just signatures waiting to happen. Deals in human skin wearing tuxedos and trust funds. But I did something worse than refuse. I ran. I ran so hard I could taste iron in my mouth. Ran past the gates everyone swore I'd never cross. Ran until the night swallowed my name and spat out a new one. Straight into the arms of the man my father hates most. A ghost with a heartbeat. A rumor in a leather jacket. A man who never looked me in the eyes long enough for me to know if he wanted to save me or finish what my father started. God help me. I was hooked to the wrong man. If you're hooked too, hit that subscribe button on your screen, because you won't believe what he did next. My story is about to get wild, and trust me, you don't want to miss my journey to survival. Before I continue, drop a comment. Did I make the right choice, or the biggest mistake of my life? Falling for my father's most hated enemy. Because what happened next changed everything. I married him. Yes, I did. In the dark of a registry, just us. A flickering bulb overhead, the marriage registrar coughing like he shouldn't even be there, and rain slamming the roof like applause, like the sky was cheering for a tragedy it had watched happen too many times before. My father thinks I embarrassed him. The underworld thinks I betrayed them. My husband thinks I chose him. The truth? I didn't choose anything. I just wanted air. A single breath without a price tag on it. But the moment that pen left the paper, the moment my new last name bled through the page like a bruise, I felt it. Something shifting. Like every corridor of my past turned and looked at me. Like every whisper that ever followed me home finally learned how to speak. Now, both worlds want me gone. Not missing, gone. My father's empire wants their runaway princess back in pieces. My husband's enemies want to use me like a crowbar to pry open his ribs. And the man I married, I hardly knew him, but I needed him more than anyone, not for love, not for comfort, for survival, for access, for power. This is business, even if my feet are shaking in my shoes as I stand here. He gave me a slow nod. All right then, let's get this over with. My father wants to erase me. He's my greatest threat, my enemy. And my husband? He's everything my father hates. Tall, handsome, filthy rich, unfiltered, and unafraid to look power in the eyes and dare it to blink first. Some say love is protection, but when he holds me, I can't tell if it's affection or strategy. I sleep with shoes by the door. My passport is in my pillowcase. My wedding ring feels like a countdown, because every knock on the door feels like a verdict. Someone here to save me or collect me. They think I'm naive. They think I'm overwhelmed. They think I'm a girl who wandered into a war. But I was born on a battlefield. I learned to curtsy in combat boots. I learned to smile like a shield. I learned that survival and obedience can wear the same face, until the moment they don't. Now the rain has stopped. The applause outside has faded. The city waits like an audience that already knows the ending. But if they think I'm just prey, caught between 2 predators, they've forgotten something important. I may be hunted, but I still have teeth. My father rules a criminal empire. They whisper his name like myth. I hear it like chains. Childhood wasn't toys. It was threat assessments. It's not paranoia if the enemy is real, he used to say. So I learned to clock exits before I tied my shoes. I learned to read faces before I learned to read books. Birthday gifts weren't candles and cake. They were lessons on leverage, on how a smile can be a weapon, on how love is just another word for liability, on how grief can be manufactured, packaged, and sold like merchandise. People think resilience is loud. I learned it's quiet. It's swallowing fear so deep it tastes like routine. It's sitting at the head of a table with shaking hands hidden under linen napkins and pretending the weight on your shoulders was always meant to be there. Tonight, his voice echoed across the dining hall. A room built with marble and menace. Walls lined with portraits of ancestors whose eyes follow you like ghosts with unfinished business. 3 suitors arrive tomorrow. Choose wisely, he said, as if choice ever existed. Each one brings power, territory, alliances. They're not men, just mergers wrapped in tuxedos, signatures with pulse, contracts disguised as courtship. I was raised to be the perfect transaction. Pretty enough to distract, smart enough to be useful, trained enough to survive the consequences of either. And yet, I failed the one lesson that mattered most: obedience. At the table, my stepmother sat like a statue carved from cold opinions, her gaze polished like surveillance. Beside her, my stepsister smirked like she knew the ending already, as if I were the punchline to a joke she wrote herself. My father at the head, the world bowing around him like gravity answers to his name. I couldn't breathe. Every chandelier felt like it was swinging. Every shadow felt staged. Even the air tasted rehearsed. He listed the suitors like auction items. One owns half the ports along the eastern Sicily and southern port of Gioia Tauro. One controls political strings, politicians like puppets waiting for orders. And the last is his favorite, because fear follows that man like perfume. I spent the entire speech studying spoons and reflections, trying to see myself somewhere in the silver, trying to imagine a version of me that could say yes. But all I saw was a girl trained to survive, not to live. Resilience. They say it's strength. For me, it started as compliance, a survival tactic disguised as loyalty. A lie sewn so tightly to my ribs that breathing felt like betrayal. When dinner ended, he stood, his chair scraping the floor like a blade being drawn. He walked behind me, hand heavy on my shoulder, a gesture that looked paternal but felt like ownership. "Tomorrow," he said, "you step into the future I built for you." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My voice was somewhere between my heart and my throat, held captive with every other truth I was never allowed to speak. This story is getting intense. If you're feeling the emotion, hit that like button and drop a comment with your reaction. Tell me, should I give up and go along with this, or should I run? I stared at the doors as they closed, slow, final, like the universe itself had leaned in and whispered, "Run." Because somewhere between the crystal glasses and the ticking clock, I understood the cost. If I stayed, I would disappear in plain sight. I would become a story told by others, a legacy, not a life, a crown, not a person, a daughter, not a woman. This is where resilience begins, not in the victory, but in the moment you realize survival is no longer enough. When your body is screaming for a life you've never seen, but somehow already mourn. 3 suitors, 3 futures, none of them mine. So that night, I made a choice, not to be brave, not to be selfish, just to be real. And sometimes that's the first revolution. Day 2. The second suitor arrives with gifts, not flowers or letters. He brings evidence of wealth, dresses nested in tissue paper, diamonds resting on velvet like trophies, waiting for the right display case. Promises wrapped in silk and strategy. He thinks affection can be purchased, like loyalty is a product he can swipe a card for. He says things like, "You deserve the world," but the world he speaks of has borders drawn in bank statements and affection measured in transactions. My father approves. He doesn't say it. He doesn't have to. Approval radiates off him like heat. He studies me from across the room with a gaze that feels like surveillance more than love. In his eyes, there's hope, a flicker, a prayer. Hope I'll accept the role. Hope I'll be a daughter he can finally stop worrying about. Hope I'll become an anchor to stabilize an empire built on shifting ground. I see the blueprint in real time, the calculations behind every word. My compliance is a bridge, a treaty, a stitch in a wound that's wider than our skyline. He needs me to agree. He needs me to stop trembling. He needs me to stop wanting more. But I'm not the foundation he thinks I am. I'm the fault line. And fault lines don't ask permission to move. They shift. They reshape landscapes. They remind the world that control is an illusion. The suitor drapes a diamond necklace across my palm. It's cold. too heavy. I can feel the weight of expectation in every facet. I can hear futures snapping shut like vault doors. I can see myself disappearing under its shine. He gestures toward a dress, a masterpiece of fabric and intention. Silk, hand-stitched, tailored without measurements. Like he assumed he already knew my size, my shape, my destiny. I try it on. In the mirror, I don't look like me. I look like a version crafted to please. A mannequin that learned to breathe, a crown without a voice. Jewelry clinks like shackles whenever I move. Promises drip from his mouth like honey laced with obligation. He talks about vacations, philanthropic ventures, a home with a view of the water. He never mentions dreams. He never asks if I have any. My father watches, hands clasped behind his back. A general inspecting the troops. A sculptor deciding if the marble is ready to break. He thinks future stability smells like expensive perfume and looks like a daughter with her chin tilted just right. But every time the suitor calls me my future, my insides turn. Because I hear what he really means. He means my asset. He means my leverage. He means my guarantee. And I realize diamonds are just stones that survived pressure. So am I, but I'm not here to be worn. That night, when the doors close and the gifts are stacked like monuments, I sit on the floor in that dress. I stare at the necklace, shimmering like temptation. I feel the fabric against my skin like destiny with fingerprints. For a moment, I imagine giving in, the ease of it, the relief on my father's face. A life where my battles are quiet and my scars invisible. But ease isn't freedom, and relief isn't love. And a quiet life can feel like suffocation when you know your lungs were built for storms. In the mirror, I touch my reflection, not to fix myself, but to remember I exist. To remember that I have hands, not just obligations. That I have a voice, even if I haven't used it yet. That I have a heartbeat that doesn't belong to any ledger. I didn't want jewels. I wanted a choice. So I fold the dress gently, place the necklace back in its velvet coffin, and whisper to the empty room, almost like a vow, I am not for sale. Day 3. The third suitor arrives and everything shifts. Not because he is violent, not because he screams power, but because he looks at me like I'm a person, young, ambitious, too confident by the standards of this empire. My father sees potential. He sees a partner who can cement alliances, tighten control, and reinforce the dynasty. I see another cage. A gilded one perhaps, but a cage nonetheless. He talks about protection, about keeping me safe, a hand on my shoulder like a promise. I've heard that line before. Men like him protect property. And I am supposed to feel comforted, supposed to nod, supposed to melt into their arms as if walls were safety. I refuse. The room is a ballroom. Crystal chandeliers shimmer like ice over water. Waiters glide with trays like silent soldiers. Champagne pours, fizzing like opportunity masquerading as celebration. He steps close, his words gentle, almost careless, but every sentence feels measured. I smile because I have to, but it feels like a mask I forgot how to remove. He asks me to dance. Slow-motion music swells, glasses catching light like tiny stars in a captured sky. I refuse. Not because I am ungrateful, not because I don't know the game, because I've learned that movement can be observed, tracked, and controlled, and I will not be mapped. Not tonight, not ever. I see my father watching, not anger, not disappointment, approval, a faint curve of satisfaction. He's pleased I'm resisting the wrong way, but compliant in all the ways that matter. I realize something then, that no matter how I move, no matter how carefully I breathe, my life has been anticipated, planned, cataloged. And yet, the third suitor looks at me differently. Not like inventory, not like leverage, not like a puzzle to solve or a signature to collect. He looks at me like I already exist, and for the first time the thought surfaces, I could want him, even as I know I shouldn't. But desire in this house is dangerous. It comes with consequences you can't pay for, even with diamonds, wealth, or influence. That night, I lie awake. The rain is softer now, just a background to thinking. I hear the faint footsteps of guards pacing corridors, the distant clink of champagne glasses left to cool, the echo of my father's empire settling in the dark. And I understand. Protection isn't freedom. It never was. It never will be. I touch my wrist, feeling the pulse I alone command. I touch my chest, where fear and ambition collide. I realize that the only person who can protect me, truly, is the version of myself I've been hiding. Tomorrow, I must decide, not between suitors, not between promises or chains, but between who I was born to be and who I will choose to become. I learn the wedding will be announced tomorrow. The empire, in all its polished grandeur, thinks they have me pinned like a butterfly under glass. Invitations printed, champagne chilled, voices rehearsing my name like a chorus waiting for a curtain call. I should have felt panic. I should have trembled. Instead, something else rises. A plan. I steal a phone. Not just any phone. A relic I've memorized years ago, tucked in memory like contraband, numbers carved into my brain, digits remembered like prayers. I dial. The line hisses, buzzing like a current through steel wires. His voice answers, deep, familiar, forbidden, the rival. The man my father could never break. The one my father hates enough to build walls around, enough to warn me away from. And yet, the one who feels like home in a world built to reject me. I don't speak immediately. I hear the click of recognition, the way silence can carry danger, the way a familiar voice can carry salvation. Meet me, I say finally. My words tremble, but only just. Midnight, no guards. The line goes quiet, then a whisper, I'll be there. I hang up and stare at the phone. Its plastic frame feels lighter than air, heavier than lead. It holds everything I need, and nothing I can afford. That night, I walk the halls of the mansion.
The lights are dimmed. The echoes of guards' boots are soft, but they exist in every corner, like shadows that breathe. I move like water, soft steps, hesitant, calculated. Every fiber of my body screaming, not in fear, but in anticipation. I pack the essentials, not jewels, not dresses, clothes that fold neatly into shadows, a single bag, keys, phone, life in motion. Outside, the night is alive. Headlights slice through darkness, cars moving like predators hunting their prey, or like I am. Rain drips along eaves and gutters, soft percussion for a symphony of escape. I stop in the shadow of the garage, take a deep breath. Think of everything I've been told, everything I've been forced to endure, everything I've endured silently. I think of my father, of my stepmother, of my stepsister, of all the suitors. The first two, pawns. The third, a mirror of what could have been, but is not enough to free me. And then I think of him, the rival, the forbidden, the man my blood calls danger, but my soul calls truth. I slide into the night, cold, wet, alive. Every street corner a risk, every shadow a possible trap. I reach the phone booth he told me to use, its glass panels scratched, corners chipped, almost forgotten. I step inside, the air thick with fog and exhaust, and wait. Headlights cut through the darkness, long beams that slice the black like knives. A silhouette emerges from the rain, tall, steady, unshakable. I realize then that I am both prey and predator, that the first act of freedom is simply choosing to step into the unknown, that every empire, even one built on blood, cannot contain what refuses to be caged. I clutch the phone like a talisman. I hear his voice again. Do you trust me? And I whisper, almost to myself, I trust myself enough to take the first step. The rain falls harder. It washes over me, over the street, over the life I am leaving behind. And for the first time, I feel a pulse that isn't dictated by fear, but by choice. Meet me, midnight. No guards. That is not just instruction. It is permission. It is rebellion. It is survival. It is the first chapter of the life I am writing for myself. We arrived at the registry just as the city slept. Empty streets, streetlights flickering like hesitant witnesses. The building was silent, almost expectant, except for the faint hum of electricity and the soft scuff of our boots against marble. Inside, the registry was cleared, doors locked, no one to see us, no one to judge, no one to report, except the marriage registrar. Even he seemed nervous. His voice trembled when he spoke, betraying the tension I could feel in my bones. Outside, gunmen stood at attention, silent, immovable, like statues carved from iron and authority. My husband stood beside me, tall, handsome, filthy rich, unafraid, everything my father despises, everything the empire has tried to break. His eyes meet mine, and for the first time I feel a strange combination of relief and terror, because in his gaze there is no calculation, no expectation, no ledger to balance, just him, just us. The registrar clears his throat, his hands shake as he prepares the forms. The pen feels heavy, ink like a shadow that can't be erased. We exchange rings. I feel the cool metal slide onto my finger, a tiny anchor in a storm I can barely name. The veil casts a silhouette over my face, like armor and anonymity stitched into fabric. When my husband says, "I do," the world stops, or maybe it just narrows. The rain outside pounds against the roof like applause in a cathedral built for secrets. I wonder, as the words leave his lips, if I am saving myself, or sentencing us both. Because marriage in this world is more than love. It is a contract, a declaration of war, a challenge thrown at the empire that raised me. And in that quiet, trembling room, with nothing but rain, ink, and heartbeat for witnesses, I realize I married a war. Not a man, not a future. A war that would test every lesson I learned, every ounce of resilience I had built, every secret I had carried in silence. Outside, the guards shift. Inside, the registrar signs the final page, ink stains trembling hands. Paper rustles like a whisper of something dangerous and eternal. I look at him. He looks at me. And in that moment the world feels both impossibly small and endlessly wide, because nothing in my life has prepared me for this. Not the first suitor, not the second, not even the empire itself. Only this, the choice, the leap, the war I cannot avoid. Word spreads like fire, not the quiet flicker of gossip, but a wildfire, a rumor that ignites rooms, streets, and hearts alike. By morning, every corner of the city seems to know my name, and every whisper carries my father's fury, sharpened like a blade. For the first time, my father felt outsmarted, not by a business partner, but by his own blood, his own daughter.
What do you think happens next? If this story has you holding your breath, you need to subscribe now. Episode 2 is coming. And what happens next? Changes everything. Comment below. Did Sugar make the right choice? Or the most dangerous mistake of her life? By marrying her father's sworn enemy? And hit that like button. If you're invested in Sugar's fate, I'll see you in the next episode. Trust me, you won't be ready.